and welcome. It's wonderful to see such a full room of so many people, and I'm delighted to be here. I'm Alana Lucas. I'm the Acting Commissioner for Equal Opportunity, and I welcome you most warmly on this very special event, the 11th Annual Equal Opportunity Commission International Women's Day Breakfast. And firstly, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting here on Whadjuk country, and I wish to pay my respects to the elders and the people and the traditional owners of this land. We'll be having a welcome to country shortly from Karen Jacob. But just before that, I'd like to acknowledge special guests today. Janine Freeman, the member for Mirrabooka, Diana Warmer, former member for Perth, Jennifer Smith, the Acting President of the WARC, Tony Beach, who's the Chief Commissioner of the Industrial Relations Commission. Now, to the Welcome to Country, and after the Welcome to Country, you will proceed with your breakfast for a short while before we will have presentations from our guest speakers today, which I'm sure you all know about, and of course I'm welcoming them most especially, and that's Mrs. Tonya McCusker, Joan Peters and Erica Smythe. Really looking forward to having them talk to all of us in a short while. There will be time for questions after our guests have spoken, so you will have a chance to interact. And the other wonderful thing that's happening today, and you might see there's a cameraman there and all the rest, but we are being recorded by Westlink this morning, and it will be made to 50,000 sites and people around regional Western Australia. There will be women around the regions from about 10:30 this morning coming together to have morning tea, and they will be able to watch the broadcast of this event this morning. And I'd like to welcome all the people in the regions. It's wonderful to have you on board, even if you can't be here in person. Now I'd like to introduce Karen Jacobs to welcome us to her people's country. Karen is a bloodline descendant and traditional owner of the Whadjuk country, and her professional focus is on developing and encouraging Aboriginal people's development in enterprise and business opportunities. She is a director and company secretary of the Noongar Property Holdings Proprietary Limited, which is an Aboriginal-owned property investment group that assists Indigenous commercial initiatives in Perth and the southwest regions of Australia. Karen is a single parent of 3 children, so she is in every respect, an inspiring role model for her people, but also for many women around WA. So Karen, are you ready? Thank you.
Kaya. Now, thank you. Somebody's heard my welcomes before. I expect everybody to say Kaya, and it's K-A-Y-A, so Kaya. Kaya. I know it's Friday morning, but I'm sure we can say it a little bit louder than that. Kaya. Kaya. I won't get you to repeat everything else. Kaya wanyan murich yogas. Nyang jerpen, nyaning yakin nija. Nunik wonkening. Mort wajak buja. Mort buja. Jerpen nunuk murich balap. Yawa coolin. Wajak buja balap. Basically what I said is that it gives me great pleasure on behalf of my descendants. I am a bloodline traditional owner from Whadjuk country, which is, Whadjuk country encompasses all of the Perth metropolitan region. So it goes as higher than Gingin, goes as low as Baldivis, through to Northam, and includes Rottnest Island, which we call Wodjumup. There are 60 different language groups in Western Australia, and over 375 different language groups in Australia all up. Over 600 different dialects. So when we refer to Australia as Aboriginal people, we actually refer to Australia as being Aboriginal Australia, only because we still have all of those countries that we recognise and those dialects, and we also have protocols and governance structures that actually haven't changed. So when we have disharmony amongst the Aboriginal community, it's often because somebody from another language group has moved into our home country and we haven't had a chance to welcome them, which is why we do welcome the countries to officially welcome visitors and guests to our region. So when we do a welcome, which like I've just done this morning, there is a protocol involved, and it's purely to welcome you to our country, whether you're now a long-time resident, whether you've been born here, whether you're a visitor, or you're here purely for recreational purposes. It's important that a traditional owner actually welcomes you to their country. We need to be able to host you, and on a spiritual sense, we also need to be able to protect you and cover you with our blessing while you're here, so that no harm comes to you. So there are some significant reasons why welcomes are actually done. All right, I will leave you with some words that I find invaluable to me, so hopefully you will find them important to you as well. Capacity and strength of Aboriginal peoples are rarely harnessed and identified by professionals as a valuable tool in addressing the iniquities or in reorientating the thinking even further to promote equity. Aboriginal people, my people, have emotional strength. We have spirit. We are the essence of people who strive and struggle to maintain strong identity and adapt to a new and challenging environment. While we value and pass on distinctive cultural beliefs, practices and life ways, we need to value culture rather than to see it as static and idealised. Rather than just focusing on the damage of colonisation or the current issues affecting Aboriginal people, we also need to consider innovative, creative and resourceful ways in which Aboriginal people are adapting in this very rapidly changing world. Work with us to promote self-reliance and capacity, as real achievement may be seen when programs and activities are created with us and not on behalf of us. Again, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you this morning to this event. I sit alongside now some very inspiring women that I've had some conversations with this morning, so I know you'll get a lot out of their presentations. Borda, thank you.
I would like to formally thank Karen for her lovely, warm and inspiring and very informative welcome to country. Thanks, Karen. Right. Just before I introduce our first speaker, I just would like to reflect on International Women's Day. And on this day, today, but tomorrow is officially International Women's Day, IWD, we do come together in the spirit of unity and friendship. And we do this to celebrate the achievements made by women and the women's movement over many, many decades, probably centuries if we go back into history further, and also to highlight our current social, political and economic issues that still confront women in many countries around the world. The first International Women's Day was held in 1911, when more than 1 million women and men rallied for the right for women to vote, work and hold public office. Can you imagine that back in 1911? 1 million people. I mean, sensational. The first IWD was held in Australia 83 years ago in 1928 on March 25th. And from its inception, IWD has celebrated achievements and progress towards equality for women. And since those early years, IWD has become a time to reflect on progress made, to call for change, and to celebrate acts of courage and determination by ordinary women who have played an extraordinary role in the history of their countries and their communities. We have fought and we have won the vote and the right to stand for Parliament. In Australia, we have a woman Governor-General. I know she's retiring soon, but we have had a woman Governor-General. We have had a woman Prime Minister, and we have had 3 state premiers who were women. And women are breaking barriers in all areas of employment, community work. We now have paid parental leave, which is an entitlement. But there is still a long way to go, and in Australia. The gender pay gap is increasing. The number of women in leadership positions is particularly alarmingly low, and especially in the private sector. Public sector is doing a bit better, but still. And women in Australia, there are still many women who suffer violence and harassment and discrimination and economic deprivation. And this happens in the community and in the home and also in work. And it also affects our Indigenous women and women from minority ethnic groups and women with disabilities, particularly. They are doubly disadvantaged. But for the women of the world, the symbolism of International Women's Day is an occasion to review how far we have come in this challenge for equality and for peace and for development in our civilised communities. It's an opportunity for us to unite, to network and to mobilise. So today we bring together excuse me, 3 very inspiring women, the theme being inspiring women, inspiring, and these 3 women, and I know you've all read about them a little bit, have led the way in diverse fields and have influenced change in their own way. So I would now like to introduce our first speaker and just give you a little bit of background. Mrs. Tonya McCusker, well-known West Australian, wife of the Governor, a trustee and the administrator of the McCusker Charitable Foundation, and she works closely with 100 community and charitable organisations. Tonya has had a varied career. She started as a ballet dancer with the Australian Ballet. That alone, I think, is an amazing achievement. And later, just went on and completed a law degree. She has worked in Hong Kong and China and as a business development manager with the Luan Youth Development Foundation, as well as with the Chamber of Commerce. What diversity. Thank you. Tonya, would you come up and speak to us, please?
Good morning, and to all the distinguished guests, as already acknowledged, thank you, Karen, for your warm welcome to country, and to the very brave gentlemen amongst this crowd of beautiful women here today. Good morning. Alana has asked me to speak to you a little bit about my life and women and men who have inspired me over the years, and I've got to do this in about 10 minutes, so excuse me if I speak very quickly. When I personally think of inspirational people, these are people who have inspired you to change or inspired change around you. There are many indomitable people who spring to mind. Of course, there's a wonderful Cathy Freeman who overcame gender, socio-economic, racial background to achieve the absolute pinnacle in her field. The young Jessica Watson, sailing around the world at 16 years of age. I was one of those doubting Thomases. Do you remember when she first sailed out on that trial run from Queensland and she was hit by that cargo ship? I said, oh, this is crazy. How can a young girl head around the world by herself? But when I met young Jessica a couple of years later and heard her story, she inspired me to change my thoughts on what young people can achieve. An amazing young woman. And then, of course, our very own Fiona Stanley and the wonderful work she's done in medical research and childhood development. And, of course, our other Fiona, who can juggle 6 children with amazing groundbreaking research in burns. So closer to home, back in the dark ages, and I'm talking a long, long time ago, I loved ballet. And these pictures of me before I had 3 children and breastfed for about 6 years or so was when I won a scholarship to study overseas in Monte Carlo at 14 years of age. And this was a big decision to make. Back in the early 80s, to get to Monte Carlo, you flew via Bombay, you got off in Rome, you took a train up to Monte Carlo, and we were in this ballet school with dancers from all over the world. And boy, did they cut you down to size. But it was a terrific ballet school, headed by the absolute most authoritarian person you could ever meet, Marika Bezobrazova, in the top right-hand corner, and she trained under Diaghilev and Nijinsky. And she inspired change through fear. We were scared to death of this lady. She sat at the front with her permed hair, her huge cane, and her 2 pink poodles at her feet, and we were so scared of her. So it's something that I wouldn't recommend. We did improve, we became good dancers, but inspiring change through fear is not my preferred way of going. After leaving the ballet schooling in Monte Carlo, I came back and spent a year at the WA Academy of Performing Arts and then joined the Australian Ballet Company. And this was a great time under the directorship of Maina Gielgud on the left there. We travelled around the world, China, Japan, we danced before the Queen in Covent Garden, some amazing experiences. Now Maina had another authoritarian leadership style. When we were rehearsing Swan Lake, Giselle during the day, she cracked that whip. But after hours, she wanted to be our friend. And this was a really difficult combination. So if you imagine you're in Beijing, she's yelling at you all day long, and then afterwards you're having a meal with her and she really wants to be your best friend. It caused quite a bit of turmoil within the company, and a couple of years after I left, they actually went on strike. So it's really important, what I'm trying to get across is that leadership style, getting the right style to inspire change. So I wouldn't fully go with Maina's style there. I then came and did a law degree at UWA and spent 5 years working in Hong Kong, and came back to WA with the Lewin ship. Now this is a wonderful program. Climbing the mast, and you're sailing between Esperance and Albany, the ship's heeling from side to side, and it's all about leadership, teamwork and self-esteem. I had some wonderful years with the Lewin, and one of the highlights of my time was working with the lady in the top left-hand corner, Carol Shannon. Some of you might know her. She was at Perth Zoo. She's in environment now with the government, Rottnest Island Authority. Now she inspired change. She is someone who I look at in my life as a real mentor. She had the hard skills. She could do the accounting, the HR, the finance. You really trusted her, but she had this incredible personality where you just wanted to walk through that door and be at work. You'd walk through the door and she was laughing. Our board meetings were fun. And being able to have that wonderful mixture of skills is a real benefit. So she's someone I really inspired me. Whilst not a female, my beloved husband Malcolm is another person who has definitely inspired me. Now he has a great intellect. The facts and figures he can spew forth are just incredible. But the thing that I admire most about him is his humility. He's really down to earth, whether he's with a Governor General or a Prime Minister, or taking a call at 10 o'clock at night from a young law student who wants advice. He treats everyone the same, and I really admire that about him. Also, his ethos about giving back to the community. He was raised believing that we have a debt to our community. How lucky are we living here in this beautiful state? I think when you travel overseas, it reminds you, when you come home, clean water, food, our good schools. Traffic can be a problem, but in general, we've got good roads and we've got a lot to be thankful. So we have a duty to give back. And for his entire life, Malcolm has pushed the importance of giving. As Alana said, we have a McCusker Charitable Foundation. We have 4 trustees, no staff, so basically each day I get emails from community organisations. I will process those emails, distribute them to our trustees, and then we decide which organisations we'll support. It's a huge privilege. I'm really honoured to be in this position. We distribute each year $5 million to more than 100 organisations. We have a focus on medical research, Huntington's, cystic fibrosis, cancer, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. We do youth development, arts and so on. And it's an opportunity to really say thank you for what we have by giving back. So when the Premier approached him 3 years ago to ask him if he wanted to be the governor, at first he thought it was a legal matter, but he was very surprised, and it was a hard decision to make because Malcolm loves the law. And when we leave on June the 30th, he's actually going to go back and do some part-time pro bono work because he just loves the mental stimulation of the legal field. But he decided to take the position of governor because he thought it was an opportunity to lift the profile of philanthropy. And what we've tried to do is work to achieve that. We donate the salary to 4 organisations, Fairbridge, Alzheimer's, Lions and Salvos. And everything we do here at Government House is to lift the profile of philanthropy. But whilst we've met some wonderful people in the community, it's the lady in the middle from Nagala, the person who flies under the radar, who inspires me the most. I'm patron of Nagala, and for those of you who might not be aware, it's a wonderful service for young families with new children. You know, when your baby cries, I remember Nicholas, for 6 months he never seemed to settle, nothing worked. But families who don't have the support can go along to Nagala and get that help. And the work that this lady in the middle was doing and what they're doing there is really what inspires us beyond anything else. So when it comes, the message I want to leave with you is you don't have to have money, you don't have to be CEO of a company or have a whole lot of staff. Everyone is capable of inspiring change around them. The Kids Who Give program is one we started 2 years ago. In this position, we got to meet some wonderful young people. Some of you might know Akram Azimi, Young Australian of the Year, Michael Sheldrick, Holly Ransom, youngest Rotarian president in the world. How could these young people have their law degrees, their science degrees, psych degrees, and yet still go out into the community and help others? What they were doing overwhelmed us. So we got them together and we realised that it started when they were very young. They developed a passion for giving back. So last year we developed the program where we went out to more than 100 primary schools, dragged Malcolm and little Mary, our 5-year-old daughter, who would hold up all the posters, and we talked to the children about giving back. And it was overwhelming what they came up with. We talked to the children in Esperance, who were doing wonderful work for Heart Foundation, up in Kununurra, one school, Boyanup Brook, little regional school. They learnt about what was happening in Africa and the need for wells. They raised money through a fete and book sales and other things, and that money was sent to Africa to build wells. Just incredible. Now, it doesn't take a lot of money. We've got no staff. We just have volunteers running this program, and it's inspiring change. Another program which we introduced is anti-youth binge drinking, and we've read in the paper recently about how young people can get out of control. Now, it's not about being a wowser. I enjoy a glass of champagne as much as anyone else might do. But when I saw on TV those pictures, those images during Leavers Week, the kids just drinking blindly. They think to have a good time, they have to be blind drunk. And you've got the young girls lying in the gutters being photographed in compromising positions, letterboxes being ripped off. There's a culture there that needs changing. So we've been working with Curtin University and 80 organisations around Western Australia to try and do something about that. Another program which has been very exciting, and I'm sure Joan is going to talk a bit about her travels to Africa. I took my 13-year-old son there last May to see an organisation called So They Can. We walked around rubbish dumps. We saw orphanages, little kids foraging. They had nothing, no parents, no food, no water. Life was incredibly tough. But with just a very small amount, you can make a big difference. They had a microfinancing project for women. Of course, you give the money to the women who manage it better. And one lady in particular, she lived in this shanty town, and she'd used her $50 loan to buy a solar panel, which she put on the top of her tin, and she could charge the mobile phones in the shanty camp. And she'd been able to repay her $50 and makes enough money to send her children to school. So from this $50 that an Australian family had donated, this whole family, their extended family, life had changed. So it doesn't take much to inspire change. And I really admire the women and the people working in that area. So, in summary, life is short. And it gets faster the older you get. Each time I wake up, I don't know where life has gone. So don't wait. Act now. If there is something in life you are passionate about, something you want to do differently, just seize that moment. Do it now. It doesn't take a lot. Go out there and make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Tonya. I think that was very inspiring. And the call to action is terrific. Right, we'll move on swiftly to Joan Peters. Now, Joan, I've known for a long time, so I'm delighted to have her here today. She is a media and entertainment lawyer and a film practitioner. And she represents many producers in Australia. She's been the executive producer of a number of feature films that you may have heard of, Drift, featuring Sam Worthington, and currently Kill Me 3 Times and Sucker. But also, she was the legal representative for the drama series that some of you might have seen, Serangoon Road. She's a board member of Australia's national film agency, Screen Australia, and also has been on the board of Screen West in WA. Joan is also a past recipient of the WA Screen Award for Outstanding Contribution to the Film and TV Industry for her work as an entertainment lawyer. And really importantly, and I know Joan's going to show us something on this, in 2006 she founded Be Kids Australia Inc., a government-approved organisation working with children in Kenya. And with a Swedish partner, she initiated K-Youth Media, a media training centre for youth in Nairobi's, I hope I get this right, Korogocho, the third largest slum area in East Africa. And she works there with numerous children through university and high school scholarships and empowerment programs. I won't say any more because I think Joan's going to be able to say it for you. So please welcome Joan Peters.
Thank you, Alana, and nice to be amongst all of you this morning. Yes, it was 8 years ago, almost to the day, that I was on the way to Cambodia, but found myself in an airport in Kenya, in Nairobi. A spontaneous reaction and a spontaneous acceptance of an invitation to visit Nairobi from a Singaporean priest who just offered me this visit to come and see Kenya. So instead of going to see the Angkor Wat, I said yes, and I went. And in 3 weeks, I saw things that I'd never seen in my life or even imagined, although, you know, we think we know what poverty is, but he took me to places that I'd never imagined. And here was I, armed with this wonderful strength of being a migrant woman, a young widow with brought up two kids, went to law school, went to film school, did hundreds of jobs in the night. You know, I could do anything. Went to law school, executive producer. I could change everything, you know. And I had cameras and pictures and jotting out plans of what the things were going to happen. And I was so empowered. I was empowered. Anyway, on the last day, on the way to the airport, we were passing this little shanty town. And the priest opened the door, and this very dirty child, she was covered in I don't know what, she was like mud covered, hops in, pushes the camera off my lap, sits on my lap, and then I put my hands behind because I'm going to the airport. I'm clean and tidy and my head is full of wonderful ideas. I'm going to change this country. And this child reaches behind, grabs my hands and puts it around her waist. And until now, I'm moved by even telling that story because I realized I did nothing in 3 weeks. I did not connect. I was behind the camera. I did everything outside of connecting with anybody there. So I came back to Perth, and for 3 months I was in a constant state of, you know, not knowing anything. But I booked a flight back, this time with no camera, no agenda, and went to the slum, and I listened to children. I listened to children who laughed, who sang, who danced, who were happy and had nothing. Anyway, I listened to them and I realized that they were raped, sodomized. Life was ordinary for them. So with a group of very young facilitators, young youth, we divided the village. The village is divided into 10, the slum is divided into 10 villages. And we selected 10 children from each of the slums, and we put them together to just talk. Children in Kenya, in the slum especially, have no voice, yeah? So we asked them, what was affecting your area? Simple things like, the chip ladies, some kid ran into her and the oil spilled and burned her leg because it was too near the school. Or simple things, horrendous things, but simple to fix things. So we worked with the children, teaching them who to see to get things like this done, who to write to, and slowly, very small things that affected them were being changed. And these children were getting really excited about this. So then we started saying, well, would you like some more forms of expression? What would you like? So they wanted art, they wanted puppet shows, which was incredible, because behind the puppets, they used to play how they were abused, how they were beaten, how they were tortured, like really abused. And then we also gave them, we bought them radio time on the local radio, and the children sat there, stunned silence. I had to kind of clip them around the ears, say, speak. And now you should hear those same children. They're like New York DJs now, And now from half an hour radio time, we've got 3 hours radio time. And we started a magazine for them, and they were writing stories and we did nothing. We just helped them do what they wanted to do. So over these years, then we from forms of expression, then we moved into focusing on education, because that's the only way that they can change. And Kenyan children value education like it's priceless to them. So we starting debating teams, and the kids went to other schools, and we managed to get scholarships for the children in the slum by their interaction with these other schools, through debating teams, through art exhibitions, through photographic exhibitions, because by this time we'd also given the children cameras to take pictures of. And a camera in a little child's hand is a very powerful thing, very empowering, because one picture and they will laugh for half an hour at the sight of what they just done, because they've done something, So, and then the children, they started asking for representation on local council, and they got it. And you can imagine how they felt with this. They were addressing the Chief Justice. They were inviting him to come to listen about the children's plight, and all these things were beginning to happen. So then I teased them, because we always had a Christmas party. I teased them and said, instead of having chicken, because they always ask for chicken for Christmas, instead of having chicken, how about if I give you some money and you use it to raise more money, like how we do for you, and then you can see what you'd like to do. They did. They raised 3 times what I gave to them. And I was so impressed that I got a bus, and I put all these children in, because they were going to give this money to the Red Cross. And instead of that, I asked them, where do you want children help? And they said, in the Sudan border. So we all went up in a bus, and the children bought the goods and oil and maize and all sorts of food stuff, because there was a famine at that time up there. And they gave it out to the children. The empowerment of these children, being able to do that, children from the slum who had nothing, giving to children, and the worse than them. They said, we get a meal every day, 1 meal a day. These children here get a meal once in 4 days. They were so moved. And they were beginning to think like us. They were raffling live chickens. They were doing all kinds of things to raise money. So then we also started sending kids to school, and by the way, 4 of them are now in university. 3 of them have finished film school. 1 more is now currently in film school. So they're progressing really well. The TE results came out yesterday. 2 have got A's. When you see the houses they live in, which I'm going to show you very shortly, you will see how that is moved. I have to wrap it up very soon. I still have so much to tell. Anyway, from the education, then we started growing, and the media school came out because we had no agenda. I left all that years ago, of just reacting to children. So the media school came up, and with each of the scholarships, the children have giving back projects. They all have to tell us what they want to do for the community, because like Tonya said, you have to build this culture from very young to think of other people. When you're so poor, you can't think of another person. You just laugh and dance with them. But the actual thinking of sharing with another person is quite a big concept for them. So all of them have each got a giving back project that they fashion, and most of them will be mentoring younger kids, helping with homework, visiting poor, old people. Anyway, I want to show you now, because nothing can describe what the environment is like. This film was done by Eunice and Akinyi, who is a student at our media school. She's just graduated. She did not know what camera was, and this is the film that she made, and I'll say a word about it after. Thank you.
Korogocho is a Swahili word which means crowded shoulder to shoulder. Everyone is awake to their normal duties in order to make ends meet. Meet a young boy called Jenga, who is 14 years old. He comes from a poor family in slum of Korogocho, and due to poverty, they live in a poor state in which they are sometimes unable to afford some of the basic needs each human being requires. The responsibility on his shoulder does not recognize his age.
Naitwa Geoffrey Jenga, naishi hapa Korogocho, tuko watoto 6, mimi ndio wa 5, kanyumba nikakutoka. Alafu naona blanketi, ndio najifunikia, itoshi baridi na finya. Sasa unaona hii maisha imekuwa ngumu, na feel very sad, lakini nasema wanaenda kuja kutoka. Najipa morala. Na ni ufanya kazi ya chuma na plastic. This is my story. Together we can make it. This is my story. Together we can make it. We can make it. Together we can make it. Together we can make it. This is my story. Together we can make it. Together we can make it. I'm an example of a hustler. Strength over struggler, I was born in the ghettos. Nyumbani hakuna dishi, tunatafuta ndo tuishi. Wenye kuhustle ndio sisi, tuko na njaa, tunakama fisi, tunatembea tunakama. Nalipush niende hiyo kazi, labda madhe ana do ya kutosha. Sasa inabidi mimi niende, kwa sababu kuenda labda siku madhe hajaenda kazi, sasa tuwezi kula. Nalala hiyo.
Mtoto alienda kurogota, sikujua kama anarogota, nilijua baadaye. Na saa ile nilimuuliza kwa nini ulienda kurogota, akasema nilirogota kwa sababu ya shida ile liko. Saa ile naona hakuna chakula, na saa ile unapata itoshi, saa ingine tunalala na njaa umekosa. Sasa nikaona tafadhali niende nikarogote, ile nitaona kidogo ni analeta dhati ya saa hiyo ingine anakula. Nafanyaga huko kuru hii ya kurokota mapupa, kilo moja ni shilingi 5. Na saa ingine naenda nakosa. Kama saa ile napata nyingi, tuseme kwa sababu kama saa hii kazi imekosa kabisa, labda 50. Roho yangu ifurahi kwa sababu ya hiyo ya kurogota. Mimi maombi yangu yasome, amalize, naone kazi nzuri. Na kama nikimbawa ile ako nazo kuiba, Mungu amsaidie kiunuke. Na naomba Mungu akiona sponsor wa kumsponsor hiyo kipawa yake ya kuimba, ndio na ya masomo kikaa vizuri, hata mimi nitakaa vizuri.
Panda kwa mkubwa, naweza panda kwa musician, kwa sababu hiyo ndio tunataka. Yani hii maisha imekuwa tu hard, lazima nikikosa kwenda chuo ni do my practice ndio nitoke kwa hizi shida. Do you love your life? I'm like my life. My life don't turn to me. It's like a different thing to me. Don't ask me to me. This is a true story. God can give me a story.
Comes through, I can break the world record and set an example. I can be the next president, oh yes I can run a business and get into supply and demand. I know I will be in a concert with the band, signing posters for all of my supporting fans. I have a dream like
nikizunguka ile mob nilipata hizo mbili, nipata hizo mbili na madhali nakula na baki na mimi si chakula nazima penzi yangu kokota hizi vitu kukiwa na fupi natuka pale papoa naweza acha.
Eunice made that film because she wanted to give voice to the voiceless, she says. People usually come to the slum and they show things like crime rates and you know, the bad things about the slum. But you can see that film is made of hope. You know, it's very poor, but there's hope in that film. And Be Kids encourages this. This is what we're about, giving voice, giving forms of expressions. It is, people see us as an overseas charity. I do not see that. I see it as an Australian charity because it gives Australians like us the opportunity to embrace vulnerability, to see it as a source of happiness and joy, just letting go of everything and just hanging out with those kids because they can teach us so many things. So thank you very much.
I'm going to introduce Erica Smythe, who's had 40 years experience in mineral and petroleum industries, currently chair of Tora Energy Limited and the Diabetes Research Foundation, has been in so many organisations, etc. But because I'm conscious of time, I'm just going to get Erica to come and talk to us now. Thank you, Erica.
Oh, thank you, Alana. That was the best introduction I've had. You know, you don't need all that guff. Well, how do I follow on from two such fantastic speakers looking at leadership in different sort of ways? And it is about inspiring leadership from both Tonya and Joan. I want today, though, to look at us as individuals and what we can do to inspire others and to lead change and to do those things. And to do that, we have to actually look inside ourselves. I saw a very interesting article the other day that was about some results of a McKinsey global survey done last year. And I just want to take a couple of short quotes from it. The results indicate that collective cultural factors at work are more than twice as likely as individual factors to link to women's confidence that they can reach top management. So it's culture that counts, they're saying. They also said that beyond specific actions, culture has a critical role to play in either supporting or hindering efforts to advance diversity. So what's culture? What's culture in an organisation? How do you pin it down and how do you identify it? Who leads culture? Well, some people would say, well, it's it's been there forever and it's the way everyone interacts and, you know, it's maybe... But really culture is led by the people in the organisation and maybe, yes, the CEO, the managing director and the leadership team, But in spite of having perhaps a less than desirable culture, you can have a sub-team that might be completely different to the organisation itself, depending on who the local leader is. So today I want to sort of think about if we're going to inspire a better culture in our organisation, we need to understand ourselves and have a realistic view of ourselves. So when you think about how you, when you go home tonight and you're in the bus or the train or the car, ask yourself a few questions. How did I come across today? Did I gain respect? Did I make a difference to the workplace? What will people be thinking about me? Will they be positive? Or maybe in the back of their minds they might be saying, thinking a few things, because they probably won't be saying it, but they'll be thinking it. Oh boy, she carries on like a pork chop in a synagogue, most inappropriate way. She can't read anyone. She says the most crazy things and embarrasses everyone, Oh God, blimey. I'm embarrassed most of the time when I have to deal with her. Maybe she says, I just wish she'd stop talking, and actively listen to someone else. Ask yourself, did I talk too much? Maybe, some of these people, I just wonder why they call a meeting. They might as well just meet with themselves and talk forever, and I can get on with my job, and I don't, the rest of us can get on and do something. Maybe when you ask yourself the question about whether you talk too much, you can sit there and say, no, I didn't say anything. In fact, I didn't say boo to a goose, so I didn't influence the discussion at all. So it is a balance. And, so I'm not suggesting you should not say anything. Maybe some people think of you and they say, oh, she couldn't even organise a chook raffle. The trouble with that is, of course, if you get a whole lot of those chooks in one room, then you've got the blind leading the blind, and it's a disaster because no one can make a decision, and you end up with just chaos. But I'm sure you're all sort of thinking, well, some of these, they might be me. Or maybe someone saying, oh, God, I can't predict her. She's up and down like a yo-yo. 1 minute, and I have to really pick the mood before I go in and challenge her on something or seek a decision, because I just don't quite know whether she's going to be smiling or gruff or whatever. Now, I think that then there are a few other things which you might pertain to you, but I'm sure they don't. There could be things like, well, she couldn't lie straight in bed at night, she couldn't get herself out of a wet paper bag, she had my guts for garters on this, or, well, that would be like putting Dracula in charge of the blood bank, or even, well, mate, she's as rough as guts. These are all the sorts of things that might go on in the heads of Australians as they think about the people in their teams. I don't want to continue to be negative but I did put all of that in the feminine language, because we come to these events and, sometimes I hear how good we all are as women, and, we look through rose-coloured glasses and we think that we behave perfectly in the workplace, and, all of the problems in the workplace are caused by blokes. Well, of course, that's not true. It's not true, guys. And sometimes when we don't get on, we'll have a, sort of this catty little conversation between ourselves, and we'll hold it on for tomorrow, the next day, the next week, next month, and next year, never forgive each other. Whereas the blokes are a lot more mature about it. They'll go down the back shed and bash each other's verbals, or they'll thump the table and then they'll go down the pub and be friends again. They've got a much better approach, I tell you, a much better approach. I'm not suggesting bashing each other up, by the way. I think women are much better, however, in a workplace at reading body language and engendering some sort of resolution through the emotional turmoil of a workplace. And we just need to become more aware of how we work our way through that as leaders. And so I've got a few lessons I've learnt along the way, and I'm very conscious of time, but I would like to just give you a few of my lessons. The first one is from my dad. And when I went out to do geology, he took me aside and he said, now, when you go out there, don't you try and outmen the men. The men will want to give you respect. They will take your lead and they will behave in a way that you demonstrate it. So don't use foul language. Don't tell really dirty jokes. And be a positive leader of men as well. Earn their respect. And if you're going to get drunk, then go home first. Okay? A second lesson is don't get sensitive about embedded apparent gender. You know, lots of people say, do I want to be called a chair or a chairperson or a chair? I'm happy to be a chairman. You know, I don't refer to person-hole covers, I call man-hole covers. Look, let's get over all that stuff, you know. Let's get on. I do get take a bit of exception when I get letters to Mr. Eric Smythe, because he was my dad. You know, let's just make sure we worry about the things that really matter. Thirdly, remember that everyone has another life outside of work, and many people bring it home. Bring it to work. We don't know whether there's a sick child or a sick parent or a divorce or a marriage breakup that's going on, or even something worse. And sometimes when people are behaving a little differently and you don't understand why, then just give them the benefit of the doubt and maybe ask them if they're okay and is there anything I can do to help. They may never admit what's happening at home, but if you're observant to people, you can see that something is happening. I want to emphasise how important it is that we give credit to people when they've brought an idea to you, you endorse it, you've looked at it, you take it forward, and it works. Then don't take the credit yourself. Be really clear that this was Mary's idea, you know. And if it goes wrong and you've endorsed it and you've taken it forward, it's your fault. You're the manager, you're getting paid more, then make sure that you take that. You know, and remember that, this was Mary's idea, can be taken in two different ways, depending on the context. Be very aware of it. A couple of words about bullying. Bullying occurs in, it doesn't matter which gender, however it is, but bullying only works when you allow it to work. And I generally find I laugh at bullies. They'll have to assume it's a joke because it's so stupid. So you laugh, you disarm it, you take it as a joke, and then the bully has to back down, or he will or she will actually appear to everyone else as a bully. I think that the most amazing thing I have seen, though, and a powerful message about bullying is one that has some statements that were made by the Chief of the Army, the Lieutenant General David Morrison. If you haven't seen this video, then go on YouTube and have a look at it. He said two things. The first was that if you become aware of any individual degrading another, show moral courage and take a stand against it. He also said, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. So if you observe bullying anywhere, on anyone, then take it to task. Show and demonstrate by your actions that it is not acceptable in a workplace or anywhere else for that matter. Finally, I guess I ask people to take courage to allow people to demonstrate their own capabilities. I have found in the past this has been the most difficult thing for me, is to delegate. And to delegate appropriately so there's a safety net for someone who's not quite used to that level of responsibility, but you don't look like you're looking over their shoulder. This takes great skill to delegate. Practice it, take little steps first, and remember, how would I want to be treated if I was getting this responsibility? Treat people as you want to be treated yourself. There are a couple of brave men over there. One here somewhere? Over there, yeah. Just a little messages for you, working with women. You know, these are deep and meaningful, take real note. You know. If you hear an outlandish idea from a woman, outlandish in your mind, don't just dismiss it, you know. Ferret down, find out why she thinks that. Actually ask her, well, why do you think that? Yeah, it's a very big statement, but ask the question, because what she's probably really frustrated that you cannot seem to understand what is blazingly obvious to her. And if a woman comes to you and she tells you she's got a gut feeling about something, then don't dismiss it outright and go, oh yeah. Encourage her to unpick it. Encourage her to try and see, well, what subconsciously has she put together to find out that's causing that gut feel, because quite often this can be something that is going wrong within the workplace. It might be a safety issue, it could be anything, but the gut feel will be very reliable, and we just don't take the time to unpick it and give it some substance. So I'm going to close with just a couple of things. Creating a positive work culture is critical for any company's success and for your personal job satisfaction. Taking leadership in creating a place where people look forward to coming to work, doing a good job, and are ambitious for more responsibility involves creating a place where people are publicly recognised for what they do well, privately mentored and guided when they're not up to the internal standards, and are challenged when they behave inappropriately. So in your area of influence, no matter how wide or narrow that area might be, your organisation's culture is, at least in part, in your hands. Be self-aware and make it positive. Thank you very much, and thank you, Regional WA.
Thank you, Erica. I am aware that we're running a bit late, so those people who need to leave, feel free to do so. We will have a few minutes of questions for those who can stay on, and before most of you do have to leave, sort of as we go along, I just want to thank you all for joining us here today. Can I have the speakers join us up here for those who may need to and wish to ask a couple of questions? We do have a couple of roving mics. Where are they? Hands up. Christine over there, Colleen over there. Our three speakers are up here. For those who can and stay, are there any questions that people out there would raise? Put up your hand and we'll run to you with a microphone. Anyone? Oh, good. One here and one there for a start. So one here. Christine, just here. And we've got one there, so we'll be ready. Yes, please.
I just wanted to thank all three very inspirational ladies for giving us their time today, and it was really moving, and thank you very much.
Oh, good, thank you.
Great question.
Joan, I've got one little question in relation to the children that you've helped. Has that made a difference to the village's actions towards children?
It certainly has. Like I said, they have representation now on the local councils in the area, and they also have a radio program that talks about things, and that radio station is very widely listened to. So yes, they have had an impact on their community for sure. Including the way they are treated by their family, their villagers? That will take a long time, but they know what is right and what shouldn't happen to them. They know where to go to take some action. To stop that kind of behavior takes more than 6 years, 8 years, I think, but they're on the road.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ah, Liz.
Thank you to all of our presenters, wonderful. Liz Ritchie from CEDAR. I think we talked about leadership and we talked about the importance of culture, Erica, something we love to talk about. And I guess one of my passions is looking at the impact that social construction has on our upbringings. And so when we talk about culture in the workplace, that actually stems from the cultures within our homes and within our society. And I guess my question to all of the panellists is what advice can you give to those of us in the room about changing role models within the home and changing the kind of discussions that we have around our kitchen table within our schools to start to shape some different examples for how women's futures might be?
You'd like to go first?
I'll have a go to start with. I think my biggest concern going forward now is that we are losing some of the skill base of body language, reading body language, seeing ways that we're impacting other people, because culture is all about the way we all interact. And the current trend of doing everything by text is a bit frightening as young people come into the workforce and all of a sudden they're in an environment where they haven't had to use those skills and they have to develop them from a backward step. And I don't even think that they're seeing a lot of it inside the family. Everyone, we've had 40 years of sitting in front of television sets, so that hasn't helped either. So I don't have an answer, but it is a concern, and I think we're going to have to take more effort at helping people to learn to interact with each other in a positive way.
I think also Erica touched on self-reflection. Constantly, everything that we do, we should look at, is this the right way? I've got the 3 children at home. Each child is different. If something doesn't work with hormonal 13-year-old James, try something different the next day and it can be transposed into your workplace. If you're not getting on with that employee, why? Talk to them, look at different leadership styles. Also, I find books have been of assistance. There were some great books by Covey. I know he's probably a bit out of date now, but some great lessons that you can learn from some books as well.
For me, I come back to the simplest point of opening our families, opening families to otherness. And as a child, we always had people we never knew stay with us, share with us. I think we're too insulated right now. I think if we open our homes and shared things, if somebody dropped by without invitation, come and eat, all this sort of stuff which is gone in our culture. I think it needs to come back so we're more generous in spirit, and then we can cope with all the stuff that happens at work almost, for me.
Thank you. Joe, was there anybody else around there? Joe?
Thank you. Question probably for Tonya and for Joan. The work that you're doing with the youth, particularly with that the learning how to give back to community in their young years, I'm not sure whether it's too soon in WA to see if there's any flow from that giving into the behavioural issues and that we're seeing emerging in the schoolyard and then in the community.
It's true, the program has only formally run for the 1 year. In terms of schools wanting to participate again this year, it's been overwhelming. And we did a big gala awards in October back last year, invited the schools along and the children presented and were recognised. And it was interesting to see the children walking away so inspired by hearing what others had done, and the parents and the teachers as well. It's a flow-on effect. For many of them, they hadn't had the opportunity to learn what's happening in Asia, what's happening in Africa or our own community, and that you can make a difference. They repeat, little people can make a big difference. And it's something, a little catchphrase that they take away, and the diversity of projects. So hopefully it will continue to grow.
Yes, for us, we have a school, the St. Stephen's School in Duncraig. The music department, the music section came to us and gave us a piano to auction for, and with that money, we sent one of the disabled, all our programs have disabled kids in them, and we have sent a disabled child in Sudan to a boarding school. And I thought that was a one-off. This year they've come And I kept in touch with them and told them this kid had gone to the boarding school, and they did it again. So it wasn't a one-off, which to me is impressive. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Oh, good. Down the back there.
Hi, Melissa Black from Impex. Just a question, you're all inspiring women yourselves. Who's the one woman in your lives today that inspires you the most?
My mum. I speak to mum every day. We're very close. She's there for my kids and for our whole family, so definitely mum for me.
For me, it's very wide. It's like everybody I meet, I listen to what they say and take something from it. You know, it's like grains of sand for me.
I would have to say the attitude of my grandmother. She's died some years ago, but she was born. She left Australia and to marry a man she hardly knew in New Ireland in New Guinea, and lived up there for 20 years and had 3 children and remote part, and came back after a volcanic eruption almost destroyed her family, but certainly the Rabaul. Before the Second World War, and she had an attitude that was just so positive about other people, and her home was always open, and so I think I lived with my grandmother for 3 years when I came to university, and so I often think, oh, how would my grandmother look at this? You know, how would she deal with this? So yeah.
I think that looks like that's it. I can't see anyone else. And, you know, we've gone over time, and that's partially my fault because I was networking too much. And that is what today is about. Please go out and network further and take some of the messages from our very inspiring women here, which I think has taken us around the world and ended up with self-reflection as well, which I think is a great message about understanding everything out there, but also understanding ourselves within our and the work and the things that we do directly. And I know that you will go out there, and especially because it is International Women's Day week, spread the word. I want to thank you all for coming. We are delighted to see so many people here today. We have some gifts for the speakers, which I will give them because they're more than deserve it. They are special gifts made by women and through Oxfam. I also want to thank Colleen Mack and Anne Giles, my team, who have been putting this all together. All the staff here from the Commission who have been a real team coming along, and I hope you've had a chance to meet them. I've certainly asked them all to meet you, and I can see that they're around the room. Also, Ailey and the team at the Hilton. And, you know, finally again, to our 3 speakers, and please go out in a spirit of unity and friendship and reflection about what we can do to make our world a better place. Thank you very much.